Hello and welcome to Children's Church. It's great that at Riverside we can worship all together, whether you are here at Riverside House or whether you're worshipping at home, in community groups, life groups, that we can all be doing the same thing. You might even be in this room that I'm filming right now. And that's great because we're going to have some time of prayer, reading the Bible together, some activities, as we are thinking on the same theme as the adults this morning, as we continue thinking about Jesus and his message. But first of all, especially if in your group, it's great to get to know each other a little bit more. And so let's go around and say our names. And here is the question for today. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you live? So I think Emily asked me earlier, actually, what would mine be? And I think mine would be New Zealand. Because I think, you could do swimming in the sea, you could do skiing, there are mountains, there are lovely scenery, there's beaches. I've never been, but that's, I think it's got all of those lovely things there. So where would you like to live if you could live anywhere in the world? Take a moment to pause now and think about that before we get on to our next game that John is going to introduce us to.
First, let's play a game. This is a great game. It's called Tribal Chief. If you've never played it before, you'll get the hang of it. It's really easy. It's quite similar to Wink Murder. So what happens is, first of all, you choose one person from your group to leave the room. That person is the guesser. They go outside. They can't listen to anything. They can't see anything. And meanwhile, the rest of you guys in the room, you form a circle. You are now a tribe. So whilst the guesser is outside the room, everyone else in the tribe, in the circle, elects a tribal chief. Be careful not to let the guesser outside know who it is. So that chief starts doing some simple actions. It could be something like clapping. It could be like some sort of movements with your hands. It could be anything really simple, and it's best if you do it nice and slowly, nice and gently. What then happens is the chief does that, and everyone else in the tribe has to copy the chief. So they have to follow the actions. Then the guesser comes back in the room and stands in the middle of the circle, and they have to try and work out who is the chief. And meanwhile, the chief is changing actions. They can do all sorts of different things. Each guesser has 2 guesses to get it right. If they guess it right, then well done. Points mean no prizes. And if they get it wrong, then that's a shame, maybe next time. So why don't you have a go now playing a couple of rounds of Tribal Chief in your groups.
Thanks so much, John. I hope you had lots of fun playing that game together. And we are just about to come into our story to hear something that Jesus said. But for our story, we need you to get building. So we need you to build a house out of Lego or Duplo, whatever you have like that around you. Grab some, build a lovely house. You can build it all together in a group if you want to. You can build it if you're on your own at home, whatever you're doing. Build your house out of Lego, one out of Lego and another one out of building blocks on a tray. Like a tray that you might have a tray in the kitchen or something like that. I've just got these are Jenga pieces actually, anything like that. Building blocks and Lego. So you'll have 2 houses ready for our story that if you might want to follow along in the Lion First Bible. So grab your Lion First Bible, ready for the next section, and get building your houses. Pause for a chance to do that right now, and we'll do the story all together in a moment. Right, I hope that you are all ready for the story. Hopefully you've got your 2 houses, your Lego house and your block house. And if you want to follow along in the First Bible, we're looking at 2 houses. Jesus was telling a story. Everyone was listening. They were out on the hillside close to the lake. Once upon a time, there were two men. One man said, "I want to build a house. I'll build it on a rock." That's a good, safe place. So he dug and dug down to the rock and he built his house there. Have we got our house? Have you got your Lego houses ready? You got your firm house? Give it a bit of a shake. Is it firm? Then the rain fell and the wind blew and the floods came. But his house stood safe on the rock. If you listen to me and do as I say, Jesus said, you will like that man. The other man said, "I want to build a house. I'll build it on the sand, where it's easy to dig." The house was soon built. Have you got your second house? Oh, I was already falling over. We've got our other house. It was quickly built. I know, I think, Emily, it took you quite a bit less time to build this house than the Lego one. But then the rains fell and the winds blew and the floods came and his house fell down with a crash. If you listen to me but forget what I say, Jesus said, you are like that man. Jesus' special friends sat close as he told them the secrets to God's kingdom. God blesses the people who know that they need him. They belong to God's kingdom. God blesses those who are sad. He will comfort them. God blesses those who want to do what is right. He will give them what they want. God blesses those who mend quarrels. They will be called God's children because they are like him. Long ago, Jesus said, God told his people the best way to live. This is what you must do. Love your enemies, not just your friends. Be kind to everyone and share. Be as nice to other people as you want them to be to you. For God takes care of everyone, nice and nasty, good and bad. The hot sun shone on the blue lake. The wild flowers in the grass glowed as bright as jewels. Birds hopped close, hoping for crumbs. But the grown-ups were worried. They didn't have much money. What are we going to eat? The children are hungry. And what are we going to wear? Our clothes are worn out. They couldn't stop worrying. There's no need to worry, Jesus said to them. Just look around you. God gives the birds their food, and see these flowers? Could anyone have more beautiful clothes? If God looks after the birds and the flowers, he's sure to look after you. You matter so much more to him. Forget your worries. Love God and do what he wants. And God will give you what you really need. Hopefully your Lego house is still standing and maybe your other house, second house, came down with a crash like ours. Oh, we've got some blocks left but not much of a house. So you've got a chance to pause in a minute and think about or talk about in your group, what person do you want to be? The one with the broken down house, the one with the Lego? And what's God's message? What was God's message? And what might it mean to live and obey God's message? To live in the truth of God's love for us all. So chance to pause and think about that and talk about that in our groups. As we think about the man who built his house on the rock, you might want to paint a rock today to remind you to build your life on Jesus' rock, on his teaching of love, of loving each other, of knowing God's love for ourselves. So you might want to paint something on there to remind you of that. And yeah, Emily's been busy painting. I think, what have you got, a cross on there to remind her of Jesus' love and all that he has done for us. And then you can keep hold of your stone. Maybe you can hold it each day and pray and talk to God to remind you to live in the knowledge of his love, to live each day on the rock of his foundation. So you can paint something that reminds you of that and take that away with you. And you might want to as well, it'd be great to pray in your groups as we finish, maybe praying that each one of us would know that to be true this week, and to help us to love those around us, the people that we like, our friends, and those who we find a little bit trickier as well. So it's been great to be able to worship together this morning, to be able to share together in celebrating God's love for each one of us. Have a lovely week.